This episode of the Endpoints of View podcast is brought to you by SentryBay, home of the armored client, the world's most advanced endpoint protection.
Okay, so ransomware, it's kind of like the monster under the bed these days, right? You hear about it everywhere you turn.
Oh, absolutely. It's all over the news.
You see the warnings in your inbox,
Ugh.
and it starts to feel a little too close for comfort. Like, could I be next?
That is a valid concern.
Yeah, and that's exactly why we're doing this deep dive today. We're going to cut through the noise and figure out what the real threats are in 2025.
We've got a whole stack of reports, articles, real-world examples.
And most importantly, we're going to figure out why you should care. So we're focusing on three major players in the ransomware game: LockBit, Lynx, and Virlock.
Each one is kind of like a different species of predator, you know?
Ooh, that's a good analogy.
They each have their own way of hunting their own favorite prey.
And we need to know how to spot them before we become the meal.
Exactly.
I mean, just look at what happened to London Drugs.
Oh, yeah, that was a rough one.
They had to shut down their entire chain of stores across Canada because of a ransomware attack.
The whole chain. Every single store.
And we're talking to a big company here.
Huge operation.
So if it can happen to them, it can happen to anyone.
And then you've got Lynx.
These guys are different,
Oh,
right?
yeah, totally different approach.
They're not going after the big corporations.
And they're targeting small and mid-sized businesses.
Why is that?
Well, they figure smaller businesses might have weaker security.
Makes them easier targets.
Exactly. And they can hit a lot more of them.
So it's like a volume game.
Right. Quantity over quality.
And they're known for being particularly nasty.
Oh, yeah. They play dirty.
Double extortion tactics.
Leak your data online if you don't pay up.
Not just locking you out, but publicly shaming you, too.
It's brutal.
And then there's Virlock. This one's a bit of a wild card, right?
Oh, yeah. Virlock is a different beast altogether.
They're not just encrypting your file.
Nope. They're infecting them like a virus.
A virus?
Yeah, kind of like those old school computer viruses.
I thought those were extinct.
Well, they evolved.
And they're spreading through cloud storage.
Which is a huge problem these days with everyone using the cloud.
So even if your computer is secure, your cloud storage might not be.
And that's where a lot of people get caught off guard.
Okay, so let's back up for a second and talk about ransomware in general. For anyone who's not totally familiar with how it works,
Sure thing.
it's basically a type of malware that holds your data hostage.
It encrypts your files, locks you out, and then they demand payment to give you the key.
Usually in cryptocurrency.
Yep, untraceable.
So it's like digital extortion.
Plain and simple.
And it's not just about losing access to your files, right?
Oh, no, it's much bigger than that.
We're talking about businesses being completely shut down.
Yeah.
Hospitals unable to access patient records.
Chaos disruption.
It can be crippling.
The financial impact goes way beyond just the ransom payment itself. You have to consider the cost of recovery, potential lawsuits, the hit to your reputation.
Okay, so let's dive into LockBit first. They seem to be the big player in this space. What makes them so dangerous?
Well, they're incredibly efficient, for one thing.
Yeah?
And they have huge reach.
How do they manage that?
They use this thing called Ransomware-as-a-Service, or RaaS.
RaaS.
Yeah, basically they've created this platform where other cybercriminals can subscribe to their service.
So it's like a franchise.
Kind of like that, yeah.
So they're providing the tools in the ransomware itself.
Exactly, and that allows them to scale their operation massively.
Makes them incredibly difficult to track down.
It's like a Hydra.
You cut off one head and two more grow back.
Precisely.
And this is how they've been able to pull off some truly massive attacks, like the one on London Drugs. That one was huge. They had to shut down their entire chain of stores across Canada.
Imagine the logistics of that. Every store, every point of sale system, their inventory databases, all potentially encrypted and inaccessible.
How did they even get in? I mean, London Drugs is a big company. They must have had some security measures in place.
They did, but LockBit is very sophisticated. They often exploit vulnerabilities in outdated software weak password policies, or they use social engineering tactics like phishing to trick employees into giving them access.
So it's not just about having security. It's about constantly updating it.
And staying one step ahead.
And even then, there are no guarantees.
Unfortunately not.
And the consequences can be devastating.
Absolutely.
I mean, beyond the financial hit to London Drugs, they also had employee data stolen.
Some of which ended up leaked online.
So it's the double whammy of financial loss and reputational damage.
All right.
And LockBit doesn't just target businesses. We've seen them hit critical infrastructure, like the University Hospital Center in Zagreb.
Yeah, that was a scary one.
They managed to disrupt the largest hospital in Croatia.
Imagine the chaos.
I read that the staff had to revert to manual operations.
Trying to track patient records, medication schedules, all of that on paper, the potential for error is huge.
It's like stepping back in time, but with life or death consequences.
Exactly.
And LockBit isn't just content with hospitals and retail chains. They're also going after the financial sector. We saw this with the attack on Aval Bank and Trust. a bank heavily involved in fintech.
Oh yeah, that one raised a lot of eyebrows.
What were they after there?
They claim to have stolen sensitive financial data, even information related to the Federal Reserve.
Wow.
That claim turned out to be false, but it highlights their ambition.
So even if your data isn't directly stolen, the threat, the potential for disruption to the financial system is enough to cause serious concern.
Absolutely. They sow chaos, they create uncertainty. That's a powerful weapon in itself.
Okay, so we've got LockBit, the big dog hitting large targets with incredible efficiency. What about Lynx? They seem to be playing a different game altogether.
That's right. Lynx focuses on a different kind of victim, small and mid-sized businesses.
Seems counterintuitive. Wouldn't they get bigger payouts by going after the big corporations?
You'd think so, but Lynx is playing the numbers game. They're betting on the fact that smaller businesses often have weaker cybersecurity, making them easier targets. And they can hit a lot more of them, making up in volume what they might lack in individual payouts.
They're not exactly playing nice, right?
No, their tactics are pretty ruthless. We call it double extortion. They not only encrypt your files, but they also steal sensitive data and threaten to leak it online if you don't pay the ransom.
So they're hitting you twice, locking you out of your data, and holding your reputation hostage.
Exactly. And they're not afraid to make a public spectacle of it. They've been known to create websites specifically to shame their victims, posting sensitive data for the world to see.
And that kind of public shaming can be devastating for a small business, especially one that relies on trust with its clients.
Absolutely. And what's even more concerning is that they're not just going after financial data. We saw this with the attack on Low Engineers, a civil engineering firm that works on critical infrastructure projects.
So the information they stole could potentially be used for something much bigger than just financial gain.
Exactly. Think about blueprints, security protocols, all of that incredibly sensitive information about critical infrastructure. That's valuable to all sorts of bad actors, from foreign governments to competitor companies.
So even if you're not a big corporation with a massive bank account, your data can still be incredibly valuable to these attackers.
And that's the point Lynx is trying to drive home. No one is too small to be a target.
Okay, so we've got LockBit going after the big fish and Lynx hitting the little guy.
Mm.
What about Virlock? Where do they fit into this whole landscape?
Virlock is a different beast altogether. What makes them unique is that they're not just ransomware, they're also a self-replicating virus.
Wait, a virus? I thought those were a thing of the past.
They never really went away, but Virlock is unique in how it combines the two. Not only does it encrypt your files, but it also infects them, turning each infected file into a new file infector.
So it's spreading exponentially, like a chain reaction.
Exactly. And what makes this especially dangerous is that it spreads through cloud storage. When a user's system is infected, Virlock encrypts and infects their files, which are then synced to their cloud storage. Anyone else who accesses those shared files, even if their own system isn't infected, can inadvertently execute the infected files and spread the ransomware further.
So it's taking advantage of the way we work today, with everyone collaborating online and sharing files through the cloud. It's like a digital pandemic.
That's a great analogy. And it's something a lot of people haven't considered. They think, oh, my computer's protected, I'm good. But that's not always the case. Your cloud storage is just as vulnerable.
And with so many people working remotely and relying on cloud-based tools, it's like an open door for this kind of ransomware.
Exactly. And that's what makes Virlock so insidious. It preys on our interconnectedness, our reliance on these digital tools. It's like a digital parasite evolving alongside our technology.
Okay, so we've got these three very different groups, LockBit, Lynx, and Virlock, each with its own approach, its own set of targets, but all with the same goal to exploit our vulnerabilities for their own gain. It's pretty bleak, to be honest.
It can feel that way, but I think it's important to remember that knowledge is power. The more you understand about how these groups operate, the better equipped you are to protect yourself.
I like that. So let's dive into that, into the power of proactive defense. What can we actually do to fight back against these guys?
You know, it's funny. We've been talking about all these ransomware attacks, the damage they can cause, but
Yeah.
a lot of it could have been prevented with the right defenses in place.
Like an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right?
Exactly.
So let's shift gears a bit and talk about how to actually stop these attacks from happening.
Okay.
Let's take the London drugs attack, for example.
Okay.
They were hit hard.
They were.
Their entire chain shut down. But imagine if they had strong endpoint isolation in place.
Hmm.
LockBit might not have been able to spread through their network so easily.
That's a good point.
So endpoint isolation, That sounds like a pretty key strategy.
It is.
Can you break it down for us? Like, what exactly does that mean?
Sure. Endpoint isolation essentially creates a secure barrier
Hmm.
between sensitive systems and the rest of the network.
Okay.
Think of it like a digital quarantine zone.
I like that.
You're isolating those crucial systems, so even if one part of the network gets infected, the ransomware can't spread to those protected areas.
So it's like containing the damage,
Yeah.
limiting the blast radius.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say the University Hospital in Zagreb had implemented endpoint isolation.
Okay.
They were forced to revert to manual operations.
I remember.
Imagine the chaos.
It would have been a nightmare.
But with the right isolation in place, their critical systems like patient records and medical devices could have been protected.
Right.
So even if an attack happens, they can still function.
Exactly.
That's huge, especially in a life or death situation, like a hospital.
Absolutely.
And it's not just about hospitals or big corporations. Any business can benefit from this.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Think about low engineers.
Mhm.
They had sensitive information about critical infrastructure projects stolen.
Hmm.
If they had isolated those systems, the impact could have been much less severe.
Right.
So it's like having a safety net.
It is.
Even if you trip, you won't fall all the way down.
Exactly.
Okay, so endpoint isolation sounds like a pretty powerful tool,
Oh.
but I'm guessing it's not a magic bullet.
Yeah.
What other proactive measures should we be taking?
Well, one of the most fundamental layers of cybersecurity is employee training.
Ah, the human element. Can't forget about that.
Right.
We can have all the fancy tech in the world. But if someone clicks on a phishing link, it all goes out the window.
Exactly. That's why it's so crucial to educate your employees about the dangers of ransomware, how to recognize phishing attacks, and what to do if they suspect their system is infected.
Yeah, make them aware.
Regular security awareness training can make a huge difference.
So it's like teaching them to be digital detectives, spotting those suspicious emails and links
Right.
before they cause any damage.
Exactly.
And while we're on the topic of prevention, multi-factor authentication is absolutely essential.
Couldn't agree more.
It adds an extra layer of security by requiring you to provide more than just a password to log in.
Right.
I've definitely seen that becoming more common.
It is.
It's a bit of a pain sometimes, but I guess that's the point, right?
It is a small inconvenience for a big increase in security. Think of it as an extra lock on your digital door. It makes it much harder for attackers to get in, even if they have your password.
And I imagine regular backups are also critical.
Absolutely. Backups are your safety net. If your systems are hit by ransomware, having a recent backup can save you a world of pain.
It's like having a rewind button for your data.
Exactly. You want to be able to restore your systems quickly and minimize downtime in case of an attack. So make sure you're backing up regularly, both on-site and off-site, just in case.
Okay, so we've got employee training, multi-factor authentication, and regular backups. Anything else we should be doing?
Well, one often overlooked but crucial step is keeping your software up to date.
Oh, yeah, those updates.
I know they can be annoying, but they often include security patches that fix vulnerabilities attackers could exploit.
So it's like patching holes in your digital fence.
Exactly. And it's not just about your own systems. You also need to make sure your vendors and partners are following good security practices. A weak link in your supply chain can expose your entire organization to risk.
It's all connected, isn't it?
It
It's
is.
like a digital ecosystem.
That's a great way to put it. We're all interconnected in this digital world, and that means we all need to take cybersecurity seriously. It's not just about protecting yourself, it's about protecting everyone.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the threats from LockBit, Lynx, and Virlock. We've discussed the importance of being proactive and highlighted some key strategies for preventing ransomware attacks.
Right. We've given you the knowledge, but now it's time to put it into action. Remember, awareness is key. The more you understand about ransomware, the better equipped you are to protect yourself and your organization.
And with that in mind, we're going to leave you with a question to ponder. Something to really get those cybersecurity gears turning. So given everything we've talked about today, all these different ransomware groups, their tactics, the growing threat, the importance of being proactive, what's one thing, just one thing, that you can do today to improve your own cybersecurity?
That's a great question. You know, it could be something really simple, like enabling multi-factor authentication
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
on your important accounts, like your email or your bank accounts,
Right.
or maybe it's just taking a few minutes to make sure your operating system and all your software are up to date.
Yeah, those updates.
They can be annoying, but they're important.
And if you're feeling really ambitious, maybe you could talk to your IT department about implementing endpoint isolation
That's a great idea.
or review your company's backup procedures.
Exactly. The point is, there's always something you can do, no matter how big or small your organization is, or even if you're just thinking about your personal devices.
Right. Everyone's a target these days.
Exactly.
And the best time to do it is now, before you become another statistic.
I couldn't agree more. We've seen how devastating these attacks can be, and the threat is only growing.
It is.
But by taking action today, you can significantly reduce your risk.
Okay, so let's wrap things up. We've thrown a lot of information at you today. We've explored the dark world of ransomware.
It's a scary world out there.
It is. We've met the players, LockBit, Lynx, Virlock. We've seen their tactics and the damage they can inflict.
Right.
But we've also seen the power of knowledge. We've learned about the importance of proactive defense.
Absolutely.
We've discussed strategies like endpoint isolation, employee training, multi-factor authentication, regular backups, keeping your software updated.
It's all about being prepared.
It is. So the key takeaway here is this. You don't have to be a cybersecurity expert to protect yourself. Just take one step today, implement one new security measure, educate yourself a little bit more.
Knowledge is power, but only if you act on it.
That's it for this deep dive into the world of ransomware. We hope you found it informative and empowering. Stay safe out there. And remember, be proactive, be vigilant, and stay informed.
This episode of the Endpoints of View podcast has been brought to you by SentryBay, home of the Armored Client, the world's most advanced endpoint protection. For more information, visit sentrybay.com.